When you're in a relationship, sometimes you forget yourself.
Yeah.
You forget what you like. You forget what you can do alone and what makes you happy. And I think that's a really good piece of advice to say to people, okay, you have to find things that you're okay with doing alone, or who cares if no one else likes it? This is you, and this is what's going to make you happy without that other person.
And that is exactly what this work is all about.
Yeah.
It's about rediscovering your identity, who you are, what makes you tick, what you love, what you're passionate about, what lights you up. Now, it may not be the things that you used to do, because when I came out of my divorce, I was like, you know what? I used to love rollerblading. And in London, we have a park called Hyde Park, and there's loads of those really cool rollerbladers that kind of whiz around. I thought, well, I was never that good. I had like roller skates. So I thought, I'm going to get a pair of rollerblades. I'm going to go back. So I did that, and I got my little rucksack with my rollerblades, and I was like, off I went. I had lessons, but I got fired from the lessons on lesson 4 because I was so scared of breaking my wrist or something, because I had a baby at home.
Oh, right.
And I was like, how am I going to look after him? And so sometimes the things you think when you go back, I used to love that, maybe they're not going to fit into your lifestyle that many years later.
Right, of course.
So, yeah, he
That's
fired
funny.
me, and we're still friends, but it was a little bit embarrassing. So.
That's hysterical. What would be your thoughts on separating from a difficult partner? Because, I mean, we've heard some celebrities like Gwyneth Paltrow talk about, how they're making intentional separations. I forget the word that they use.
Conscious uncoupling.
There you go. Yes. Which seems like something that is a fantasy. I mean, if you're getting a divorce, you probably don't like the other person. But we can get into that if you want, if you think that's a real thing.
Yeah.
But on the other side of that question then is, how do you deal with difficult partners? Because for the most part, you're dealing with someone difficult if you're separating.
Yeah. And I think you speak like someone who's been there, so I get it.
Yes, I have.
I mean, conscious uncoupling, if you can do it, great. I think behind the scenes of that, though, there's often a lot more pain than people see. And it's, one person, in my experience, is always a bit further down the line than the other person. So, if you are able to go on holiday with your ex, great. And absolutely, it's great for the kids and wonderful. But I termed the phrase aggressively severing, which is kind of the other end, which is definitely what I did. And so that's really tough. When you're going through that, divorcing or separating from someone that's toxic, well, first of all, the first thing is it's not your fault. If you were in a toxic or abusive relationship, it's not your fault. Most of my clients think it is when they leave. That's the first bit. They're broken because the toxic relationship is designed to undermine you, your confidence, your self-esteem. And what we want to do is to sort of nurture that and give them the hope to rebuild that and show them how. I think when you're leaving a toxic relationship, safety has to come into that. And I think having a good support team around you of people that really understand what that is, because the coercive control, emotional abuse is very difficult to understand unless you've been in a relationship with that. It's quite hard to spot. And for people that haven't experienced, they might say, well, they were just having a bad day. Maybe you're exaggerating a bit. But also, the triggers that might set off anxiety for you are going to be there for a while. So we need to look at those and help you to navigate those. I would say you've got to be careful about the team you build around you so that the people really do understand that as a toxic relationship. And again, planning before you leave, making sure you and the kids are going to be safe is key. But then once you're out of that, the interesting thing is physically, you're living in a different place.
Yeah.
Great. And people say, oh, well, it'll get better. No. If you're divorcing a toxic partner, post-separation abuse is something that's really misunderstood. And it quite often accelerates after you leave the partner because they're losing control over you, which is what they need to exist. And that's their oxygen. So as you pull away, they're trying to find ways to hook you back in or hoover you back in is the term. So what we want
and maybe, sorry, just to clarify, that's not always to keep you in the relationship. It's just to have control over you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well done for clarifying that. Yeah, it's to have that control. It's really hard to let go unless they've got somebody else, in which case they may still be happier for you to go, which is quite often the case because they don't like to be on their own. But if you get out and you're trying to move on, they're not going to want you to be happy. So divorcing a healthy partner is about coming to some kind of fair compromise at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Divorcing a toxic partner is about them trying to cause maximum suffering and pain. And it's pretty much about annihilation. Yeah. So that control from being a general everyday thing, because you're not there so much, will be targeted on kids and finances, because they know that's where it's going to hit you the hardest and cause most pain. Right. So again, working with people that really understand that and the effects of the distraction techniques when you're trying to go through the legal process or the emotional control, just from a look can trigger clients. So again, we've really got to understand, my tools for this I created because I needed them. Mm-hmm. And when I went through it, I was like, okay, I really need to find a way that I can manage this and dial down these emotions. I know I can control how I feel. We can all control how we react. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it's easy, but there are things you can do to take your control back and dial down those negative emotions. But the thing with toxic partners is if you understand the game they're playing, and a lot of people don't like that term game, but whether we like it or not, we are playing a game. They're playing it and we're in it. So unless you learn the rules and master them and you're 2 steps ahead, you're going to be moved around that board like a pawn. So we want you to understand that. And then
you're just going to constantly be on the defense because you just react to everything.
Yeah. So we want you to learn the rules and then be 2 steps ahead, because then you can see what they're doing. And this is really powerful because not living with them, you're not physically living in the same place. But emotionally, what I find is most of my clients are still renting a lot of space to their ex. So you're not emotionally dissociated at all. So it's almost like they're still in that relationship. So the way to dial that down is by understanding the game and then looking at what they're doing tactically. So when something comes in like a nasty email, or they let you down with pickup times for the kids, or they're messing you around, you take what I've designed as a gameplay checklist, which is a list of all their behaviors. So we can look and see, okay, instead of me diving into the rabbit hole of the process of, why are they doing this? This is awful. I've told them not to do that, or this is unkind. You go, right, what is the tactic? Oh, it's confusion. It's being unkind. It's lying. And you just tick the boxes so you don't get emotionally into that scenario.
Right. It's interesting that you say this because I can see this spinning in my head for what I've gone through. I've been divorced for 10 years.
Yeah.
But it's still the process of when I get an email or a text, I know now if he's had a bad day, because I can tell that he's, usually I'll get this firing of all sorts of things and I'll be like, did someone throw you down the stairs today? Like, what are you trying to take out on me? Like, it's crazy, but now I've started to see it. But it's interesting, 10 years later, there have been times when I find that it affects my whole day, the interaction, because it throws me off. And I'm like, how could someone be so mean? How could they be such a horrible co-parent? How could they blame me for things? How could they be so in my business when, like, I haven't been with this person for 10 years, and it can really affect you. Even if you think that you're above it, it could still, create a ripple in all your everyday activities unless you are, like you're saying, 1 step ahead, or the game they're playing, so you don't react. I'm very reactionary. I fire that text off within 2 seconds when it comes and, thinking that I'm winning, but then it just goes back and forth.
There's always another level for them,
Oh, yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, but that's totally normal, Rachel. Just be reassured. That is the normal reaction to this. But when you're saying, well, the thought patterns you go into with those things, they're the rabbit holes I'm talking about. Yeah. So by just going, okay, what do they want? Because it's a game. So it's like, what do they want? Where do they want me to go here? What's the reaction they want from me to feed the next nasty message? So it's like, okay, how do I just pour cold water on this? Right. Which is you taking your power back. And it's something that's really, seems really difficult to do with someone that's all controlling. Right. But you can take your power back by understanding the rules of the game. Right. And then going, I see what you're doing. You're not as clever as you think because I know what's coming. Your textbook, they're all textbook. They all follow the same patterns. So it's like, okay. And then by you not going into those rabbit holes, you are winning. And that's how you take your control back